Hey guys, welcome to the Ecom Toolbox Podcast with Perry and Kim.
Kim and Perry.
Where we open the hood of our own business to show you how we run things and talk to Amazon sellers like you about how to run your side hustle like a real business.
What's up, sellers? My name's Chris Grant, and I am your special guest host for this inaugural episode of Ecom Toolbox. And Ecom Toolbox is going to be hosted by Perry and Kim normally, but they honored me with the opportunity to be able to interview them so that you get to know them a little bit in this first show and understand why you're going to want to make this a regular listen. Kim, Perry, thanks so much for allowing me the opportunity.
Oh man, thanks for doing this. We really appreciate you taking the time.
I'm happy to. Absolutely. Now, we've known each other for a long time. I won't say how many years. I'm not going to do that to any of us, but we've known each other for a long time. You guys have been part of the reseller community for years now. And something that I have always enjoyed is that you guys are honest. You guys are real. Like, there's warts and all. We get to see everything. And I know that that's what you're going to bring to this podcast. And so I was hoping we could start this whole thing off by talking a little bit about why you guys decided to do this.
Yeah, that's a great question. For years, I think it was 2017, Chris Green asked us to speak at the Scam Power conference, maybe the last Scam Power conference that they had. And so we quickly branded ourselves as Perry and Kim because we didn't know what else to call it. And, everybody knows us. We're the guys with the big family. We have 13 kids. But as we decided to move into trying to formally help other sellers, we came up with a brand, Ecom Toolbox. So we're kind of in the middle of rebranding. But we want to take our 11 years of FBA experience and we scaled from nothing to, I think at our peak, 13 million. And so we've walked down the road and jumped a bunch of hurdles and know where the pain points are. And we want to take that experience and help other sellers, basically.
That's commendable. This has got to be the follow-up question, of course, because at your guys' level, you guys could turn off social media, shut out the noise. You guys can just focus on your systems and your processes, and you'd be doing just fine. So what is it that makes you want to do your part in giving back to the community? Why do you guys care?
Kim has a really good answer. Yeah.
Every time somebody asks that, my first thought is how much help we had when we were getting started. One of the things that shocked me about the Amazon community was how freely everybody gave, because we're all on a certain level competitors, and I didn't expect that level of openness and transparency. And I think that's really helped us to grow over the years. And so it's something that we just really enjoy giving back to the community. And also, I feel like we gain when we give to others too. One of our 4 core values for our company is abundance mentality, that there's enough to go around for everybody. And when we interact with other sellers, when we help them with their problems, we learn more about our own business and more about how to solve our problems. We pick up pieces of information that we never would have picked up otherwise. So it's mutually beneficial.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know that enough people have that mindset. I think that's fantastic. I know that this podcast is going to be excellent for people who are building their business, maybe just getting started. They're growing, they're curious, they're questioning, and they're kind of trying to figure out what that next step is. So honestly, I'm excited, and I'm glad to be able to be here for this first one. And I'd love to just take you guys through. We're going to go through a whole lot of stuff, but if you guys could take me back to the beginning, what is it? I mean, there have always been a lot of opportunities to make money outside of a 9 to 5 job. But what is it specifically about Amazon when you guys found out about it that said, you know what, let's really dive in on this?
Yeah, we kind of got to go back to the beginning of our marriage because we dabbled in all sorts of different businesses almost from year one. Like we actually bought a mail order course on how to clean and repair VCRs and had a little route. We ran a virtual ISP in the early 2000s where we were buying dial-up accounts for $6 and selling them for 10. Had 150 customers. Did eBay flips. Kim could tell you about her arbitraging kids' books from library sales before we even knew the term arbitrage, you know.
Yeah, back
So
when you had to write the HTML for your eBay listings.
yeah, but so we spent our 30s dabbling in different kinds of e-commerce. Like we even sold antique Bible pages from 500-year-old Bibles and tried to set up our own shopping cart and website. End
I
up
always feel
moving
like I
to
have to explain there. We weren't damaging the Bibles. They were already broken and we were buying the pieces from a guy who repaired them. That was a
yeah. So
horrible thing to tear Bibles
they,
apart and sell pages.
but it was really cool because we got to see like Wycliffe Bibles, Geneva Bibles, 500-year-old, 400-year-old King James Bibles, you know, pages. Um, and then we would mat them and mount them and sell them. But we found all these pain points to e-commerce in the 2000s, and then in 2014, when Kim had a friend reach out and encourage us to try FBA, for me, I could just see that Amazon had solved a lot of those pain points that we had been struggling with. And you know, back then, Chris Green was a big voice in the community, and he talked about the rule of three. You know, you want to buy something for 1/3 of what you could sell it for, and then there was a third for you, a third for Amazon, a third for Cogs. Um, so it just seemed really straightforward. Amazon had solved a lot of pain points. It just looked like a math formula to me back in the good old days when things were simpler, you know?
And you got that vision long before I did. To me, it
Did
was
I
just a,
really?
a side hustle. It was a way to make a little bit of money on the side, but I think you immediately wanted to blow it up.
Oh, first week of sales was like $400, and I felt like Neo in the Matrix when he could read the code. Like, this is my moonshot. We got to go. I don't know why, because I'd had a dozen side hustles that didn't amount to anything, but you know, and I've wondered about like Zig Ziglar and the power of positive thinking and stuff like that. What was different about this? To me, it just looked like Amazon had solved enough of the things I struggled with that we had a shot at making this work.
Now, back when you guys did get started, was there, I hate to call it a problem, but was there something, in your life that you were trying to, was it just you guys wanted to do your own thing? Did you just you had a lot of mouths to feed. Was it just making a little extra grocery money? Like, was there a particular problem that made you guys strive for these side hustles and then finally choose Amazon?
Well,
Oh, there's a couple different questions to unpack there. Go ahead, hon.
I mean, for me early on, like growing up, my dad always told me the best way to make real money was be in business for yourself. And for a number of years, he ran a paint and drywall company, so kind of service based. My mom, he would do make ready painting a lot for apartments, and my mom would clean them, do the make ready cleaning. So that was kind of in my head. And then as our family grew, um, I like toys. I've always been a little bit of a computer nerd and a gamer. And with a large growing family on a fixed income, part of it was definitely like I wanted to upgrade my computer. I needed a side hustle, you know? So then later it was, I want to make a house payment, so I need a side hustle. How would you answer that?
Well, you said you weren't sure what gave you the vision for Amazon, why you believed so much in that one. And I think Chris's question almost might have answered that because remember the situation we were in when our friend reached out to us. She reached out to
Sarah.
us because you were working out of state, trapped in a job that made you miserable. And she knew that we were probably looking for an alternative income. So I think you were much more motivated to make that one work. Everything else we wanted to work. We tried. We wanted a side income that could help our full income. But that was the first time where we were in a situation that we really, really wanted out of. And so I think that might have motivated us to really put everything we could into it.
Yeah, I'd gone from being home every night for 20 years to being a road warrior, leaving from Monday to Friday. And you don't have a big family if
State
you don't.
halfway across the country.
Yeah. Yeah, Fort Wayne, Indiana is a nice town, but it's not nice enough to justify being gone from your family 5 days a week.
Uh, I think that's got to be, yeah, not to say that you guys aren't relatable, but that has to be the most relatable thing, I think, for entrepreneurs. I know that is why I started looking. I sold insurance. I didn't have to be a road warrior, but I did not want to be around someone else's kitchen table at 7 o'clock at night. I wanted to be around mine. I didn't want to miss the first steps, and that's why I started looking. And I hear that so often. So that's fantastic. When I don't know if we all got started around the same time, but when we got started, there were not as many, kids in Lambos flashing orange bars as there are now. So it's easy to have this kind of jaded mindset or vision for what can happen from selling on Amazon. But when you guys got started, what did success look like? What did I don't want to call it the end of the road, but what did the end of the road look like for you guys?
I mean, how did we know that we were succeeding, or what was our end goal?
What did success look like? Like when you were first starting, you're dreaming, when Perry sees the Matrix, what did the end goal look like as a beginner? Was it, well, none of us have a job outside the home, or none of us have a regular traditional job? Was it, we're Scrooge McDucking it in our riches? Or was it something in between?
I want to start there because, again, I think Perry's vision has always been much bigger than mine. So for me, it looked like him being able to work from home. Yeah, us working together, not having to go away to Fort Wayne, Indiana, being able to quit that job and our family being together again. And it looked like not struggling financially because my whole childhood and through our marriage, we had struggled financially. So just being able to live a comfortable life where we didn't worry about being able to pay the bills, that to me looked like success.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways to answer it. As we got into the mechanics of the business, we had one quarter in 2014 that we sold. We sold about 5 or 6 grand. And then the next year we did 500,000. So I was immediately benchmarking like, can I sell 1 million? Can I sell 2 million? Can I sell 5 million? So that kind of moved, but I I tell people I have a larger than average family. So I wanted to make enough money to kind of have that middle class, upper middle class lifestyle where I could take as many of my kids and their spouses as wanted to go on trips. So that was kind of, have enough money where if we want to take everybody to Cancun, use points, whatever, we could do that. Kind of that was like, to me, that was success. Vacations with the family.
I like that. The reason I asked that question is because so many of the people who get into it nowadays, they do their first introduction is that person with a rented Lambo. And while that's great, and if that's really what you want, fine. But I think that 99% of people they want to be able to do that. They want to make sure that the bills are paid. They want to make sure that they get to choose how they spend their time rather than someone telling them when to clock in and when to clock out. And they want to be able to take their family on vacation with them.
Yeah, and Chris, you keep coming. You've mentioned the Lambo a couple of times. I did a post recently that said, "This is my Ferrari," and it was a picture of me in in a commercial jet. And I was making a spur of the moment trip to visit our daughter and son-in-law who just had their first baby.
Mm.
And just being able to book a ticket the next day, it was reasonably priced. So, not extravagant, but still being able to book a ticket and say, yeah, I'll be there. She called me. It hadn't gone as they expected, as I hoped. And she wanted to know if I could come. And I was there in 24 hours. Being able to do that is our Ferrari, having
Yeah,
those options in life.
absolutely. Now, this question may belong a little bit further in the podcast, but I'm going to lose it if I don't ask it now. Perry, I've known you guys long enough. Perry, I know that you see something and immediately it's like, all right, let's run after this. This is going to be huge. We're going to make it huge. And Kim, let's hold up a little bit. Let's figure this out. Let's, head in the clouds and hands in the dirt is kind of how you guys seem to operate. How does that work in your business and in your life? Is there friction, or do you guys keep each other balanced, or is it somewhere in between?
Well, friction, never.
The, the answer to that is yes.
What has
So,
been what's been the how has that benefited you guys?
well, working with your spouse is the best and hardest thing you'll ever do for your marriage. You got to work through a lot of crap if you're going to be day in, day out in the trenches of a business with your spouse, for sure. Um, now, it's forced us to get real about communication. Um, so we run our business on a system called EOS. A lot of people have heard of rocket fuel or traction. It's that system. And about 3.5 years ago, we hired a coach to help us implement EOS in our business. And I remember our first annual planning session. Kim and I were bickering. It was mostly me. I was getting annoyed with an answer. Like I felt like I couldn't get an answer out of her. And I kept leaning in on the question. And at the break, our business coach took me aside and was like, sometimes you got to remember there's other people in the room. So,
I just want to point out he took you aside, not me. Draw from that what you will, Chris.
well, I'll point out that I scheduled marriage counseling for the next week. So we had to find some tools to help us work on our communication, but also bringing other people on the team into some of the decision-making processes to smooth that out.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real joy. I mean, it's not all roses. One of the most hilarious stories to me is early in our business. I had just come home. I'd been almost 18 months gone 5 days a week, right? And Kim had built this little Amazon business that was running out of our converted garage, and that was our warehouse. But I'd been doing materials management, shipping, receiving for 20 years prior to that. And she showed me how to do an Amazon shipment, and I'm taping a box, and she said, "You're doing that wrong."
Those are fighting words, aren't they?
And I was like, "Get out of my warehouse." Well, my warehouse was a 200 square foot converted garage, right? So we learned to find our own space in the business where we both excelled and had expertise and respect each other. For the next
That
6 months,
respect goes a long way.
yeah.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's, during the early days, she was doing admin, I was doing operations, which is prep and ship and sourcing, and we only communicated by like texting, and that kept the friction down. And then later, as we got better tools, we work side by side and have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah.
I also think the fact that we're so different brings a lot of balance to the business. Between the two of us, we have a really broad skill set, and there's a balance of perspective between the two of us because we come at everything from such a different angle. I think
You say that.
it's worked well for our business.
I think that's solid. Now, I do want to point out something that I find a little funny, a little amusing, in the fact that Kim, you seem so hands in the dirt, but you're the one who jumps out of airplanes. I find that a little amusing. Um, if anybody kind of looks at your business from the outside, they're not going to really get to see the bumps that have been in the path. They're going to see this nice smooth line up and to the right on your chart. But I was wondering if you could kind of pull back the curtain a little bit and maybe share a time or a couple of times where there are some warts that were pretty visible, and maybe what you guys did to get over those difficulties in the business.
Probably the first big one was a couple of factors together. Do you know what I'm talking about, hon? When we switched categories from fast moving groceries to slow moving clothes and shoes, which were much less work, higher net profit per unit, but they turned a lot slower, tied up a lot more capital. And it was right around the same time that that Perry quit his job, and so we started taking money out of the business to support ourselves, which we hadn't done previously. And I think we had taken an Amazon loan, and our last couple of payments were due right at tax time. And all these factors happened within a couple of months. And so and also Perry being in the business meant that we were on a really fast growth curve, right? He was shopping like crazy. I keep saying he's the big vision. We were blowing up our inventory, and he was looking at Inventory Lab. It showed us making more money than we had ever made before, month over month over month. We're rich, right? On paper, we're rich in Inventory Lab. Our bank account was empty. We didn't have money to keep shopping. We didn't have money to make the last loan payment. We didn't have money to pay our whole tax bill. And so that we kind of had a come to Jesus moment. That was the first of a couple, but where we had to learn what was going on there and wrap our minds around the difference between profitability or profit and cash flow. They were two completely different concepts that we had never tried to separate before, but we were feeling it. That was a big early crisis point.
Yeah, that was a slap in the face. You hear, we don't have formal business education, but we'd been in and around business. My dad being an entrepreneur and working for a smaller company for a number of years, and just getting a real hard life lesson about the value of inventory turn and cash flow forced us to figure out better systems to manage that. I'd say another crisis was probably self-inflicted, but learning to hire better. I kind of have a Florence Nightingale kind of personality where if I like you and I can help you, I want to help you, fix you, make you better kind of thing, And so I had hired a bunch of friends and warm contacts that weren't always a good fit for the kind of culture we were trying to build in our company. And so that caused a lot of personnel problems early on. And the ironic thing is she's so shy. I was hiring them, and then I was having to do the cleanup too. So
I could tell you everything you were doing wrong, but I couldn't do it right. I could not handle hiring.
Yeah.
During a tough season like that, as much as we want to be analytical in our businesses and we just want to look at the spreadsheets and make decisions, I mean, we're human. So there are emotions involved and fear and uncertainty and doubt. And can I figure this out? Am I smart enough to figure this out? And I mean, these are things that I know I say to myself as not only a business owner, but a dad. And so I would imagine you guys did and maybe still do now. How do you manage those emotions while trying to fix problems that arise in the business?
I let Kim start by talking me off the ledge because I'm the one that
Hmm.
goes from 0 to 100 right away. And she's usually a little more analytical at first pass, where, but then if something seems a little daunting, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, hon,
Oh, I
sometimes if she,
froze in COVID. I froze when COVID happened. You had
yeah,
to.
so I'm likely to chart a path through the more complicated problems, I guess, if she hits a wall. But like when Amazon changes something, I'm the one that's like, they're trying to ruin our business. I remember early on, you'd find a good ASIN, you felt like it was replenishable, and then a restriction would pop up. And I would say, why are they trying to ruin, like every is 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? I can't get my legs under me. Why do they keep put? And she would say, you got to look at it from their perspective. They're trying to protect their customer. Let's figure out what they want so we can pivot well. So I guess that difference in personality that brings that balance naturally and helps us between the two of us find a perspective.
I really love root cause analysis, problem solving. To me, it's like logic puzzles, and I kind of enjoy working on it for that reason. I think it helps me keep my head when Amazon yanks the rug out from under us. Just to go back to what are they trying to accomplish here? They're not, it
Hmm.
feels arbitrary, but it's not arbitrary. They're trying to do something.
Yeah. 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 Trying to look through their eyes is may not, it's not fun, but it is, I think it is helpful. I think you're right. I would imagine, and I think maybe this doesn't just apply to Amazon sellers. This applies to anybody who starts a business. Was there ever a question where either of you or both of you said, you know what, maybe we shouldn't scale this anymore. Maybe we should even think of looking for some sort of off ramp.
I think it's been a point of discussion between us. How much do we want to scale? Do we want to keep scaling? And what's our plan B? What's our eventual exit from the business going to look like? We haven't
Yeah.
haven't decided it yet. You always want to grow faster than I do. You always want to be more aggressive than I do.
Um, that's interesting because early on, people would ask me in the first 5 years, how long it seemed like a almost illegal hack as a way to make money, right? It just seemed with all the other small businesses we tried to start, it was too easy. And we knew there was uncertainty in the platform. Amazon's an interesting business partner. They keep you on your toes. They change things a lot. They evolve the rules. When we started, 3 inauthentics would get you permanently suspended if they came in too quickly, which now they're just routine to get them cleared. So I would tell people back then, I don't think it'll last more than 2 or 3 years, but we're going to make whatever kind of money we can in the meantime. And then after a while, well, I met my friend Dan, who started in 1999. He's retired now, but he started flipping shoes on eBay in 99. And somewhere around 06, 07, got the email from Amazon and moved over. And at that point, I had a shift in mindset. It was like, well, he's been doing it for 20 years, but I got to stop this short-term thinking. Um, I honestly go back and forth as far as getting out or continuing to scale because, you and I both know Jeff Storch, right? And then Jasm, and these guys are 4 to 10 times bigger than us. Um, so I see the possibility, but it's kind of like Biggie said, more money, more problems. As you grow, the systems to manage it becomes more complex, and you want to do the hiring and the management, keep it going. So we haven't really answered that question, but we're kind of content where we are. We'd like controlled growth. And I don't think we're really seriously thinking about getting out of the business anytime soon. Is that fair?
Right. Yeah, I don't think we are. We are focusing a lot more on bottom line than top line the last couple of years.
Yeah.
That's been a shift.
I'm hearing that a lot from some of the longer term operators. And we'll probably dive into that a little bit too, because I think I would imagine there's some lessons there. Um, I do want to talk about your guys' path to growth and scaling a little bit. Um, Jeff Bezos talks about, you only have to make 2 or 3 really good decisions a year. Um, and so I'm curious, are there any decisions that you can look back on, or are there any shifts that you made in your business that had a significant impact, a kind of a very large point of leverage that affected your guys' long-term growth?
I think the shift into shoes and clothes around 2015 was huge for us. So in 2015, the entire category was gated. So you had to do more upfront work to get into the category. And once you were in, it was wide open. And since it was wide open, we sold dozens, if not hundreds of brands. And then once it became an ungated category with gated brands, that grandfathered us into a lot of stuff. So we accidentally set the stage for specialization, a little bit of separation, a little bit of a fence, a moat from competition. And that was what drove us into that, because it was perceived as hard. It was a higher ticket item. This
A lot
was
of
that.
returns. People were terrified of the refund percentages.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a big one. Um, 20, and I'll tell you the other one. And I'd be really curious to hear Kim's perspective on this, because I know what I was thinking. But November, December of 2019, I hired a team in Fort Worth. I allowed our team in Houston to scale up. Um, I don't think I brought my brother. I think I brought my brother on in Nashville to do Nike for us, all in 2 months. And in the first quarter of 2020, for the COVID shutdown, they had doubled the value of our inventory and taken us right to the edge of our cash flow. And then the shutdown happened. And so it was perfect timing. You know, people say the harder you work, the luckier you get. But we doubled our business, and then the shutdown happened. And for basically 6 weeks, we sold off half our inventory. We came out of the end of the shutdown with, well, on a cash basis, we paid off all our credit card debt. We had half our inventory left. On a lot of listings, we were the last man standing. But I think in that process, I stressed her the hell out, because she's the CFO and she's paying all the bills and she's trying to keep all the shoppers working, right?
I forgot about that. I mean, I don't think we've ever talked about it from that perspective before.
Pushed it way down
That's
deep.
yeah, that's really interesting. It was like a repeat of what had happened early on that we already talked about, where we were very profitable, but we were on the brink of bankruptcy at the same time. And COVID bailed us out. It ended up, I kind of froze when COVID came. We couldn't ship for 6 weeks. Perry figured out the logistics of keeping the team moving, what to do from day to day and week to week. And it ended up being a net good for us because we had so much inventory. It didn't hurt us to sit on our hands for a while. And everybody around us was selling out. And meanwhile, we were the last man standing. We got great prices, high margins on everything. It ended up being really, really good for us. I
Yeah, it's
did not
funny.
think about that. And
We
also,
even
I want
had,
to clarify just one thing. You mentioned credit card debt. We never paid interest on our credit cards. We've been really self-conscious about that. We've always paid them off before the grace period, paid the statement balance. But in those early years, we didn't necessarily have enough money in the bank day by day to have paid them off. So we were accumulating short-term debt and then immediately paying it down. Coming out of COVID, we had enough cash that we got into the habit of paying everything every 7 days, which we still do. So we have no real debt in the business. We've been able to stay well ahead that way. And COVID was that big bump for us.
That's awesome. I'm not sure. I'm not sure a lot of people can say that, which is that's powerful. Um, if if you follow Perry at all, you know that he likes systems. And um, when did you guys start implementing systems into your business, and how did that affect the business?
That was one of those areas where our previous life experience set us up for success in Amazon, I think, specifically Perry's experience there. We didn't realize over the decades um, how all the circumstances were setting us up for success in Amazon. You want to talk about your systems experience?
Well, yeah, but it was funny. It was almost from the beginning because she she was doing RA in in a bedroom, like listing it and prepping it and then carrying it out to the car and taking it to UPS. And I would come home on the weekend and be like, why are you doing it that way? Here, try this. And so almost from the beginning, I was making tweaks to her workflow. And it got to the point where I'm like, you got to move downstairs. You're wasting too much time carrying things up and downstairs. And so just as I had time, started implementing the little bit I knew.
But
But
you've been exposed to a lean expert at your previous job.
yeah,
You
I
got
ran
some.
a 20,000 square foot pick and pack warehouse for a small company here in San Antonio. They did about 6 million in business. We shipped about 70 to 80,000 packages a year. And 30% of those packages came in the whole year, came in the 3 weeks after Thanksgiving. So September, we'd be shipping 60 to 100 orders. October, it'd go to 1 to 200 orders. November, a day, 300 or 400 orders a day. The day after Thanksgiving, we'd be churning 3,000 orders a day. It was wild. Working 12 to 15-hour days, 6 days a week. Um, my canned dad joke is it was a Christian company, but little Johnny's mom forgot her religion if you screwed up his Christmas. So had to be on point, right? And so second year in, a guy who was a lean black belt consultant who homeschooled his kids. I hired his kids as homeschool as a seasonal labor to make some Christmas money, and he was between gigs, and he came in just for free to work alongside his kids and hang out with his kids. And after about 3 or 4 days in my warehouse, he came up to me and said, I don't want to offend you, but your warehouse is making me crazy. Can I give you some tips? And that moment changed my life and how I thought about work. And over the next 2 to 3 years, with his help, we redesigned that warehouse about 4 times. And the end result was we were shipping 150% more product with the same labor. So it was another one of those, again, Neo in the Matrix moments where you just see clearly, you understand. Uh, One of my favorite quotes is Archimedes, I think. Give me a lever big enough and a place to stand, and I'll move the world. And for physical work, lean became that lever for me. So it was just making our life so much easier with less effort, but we were getting 2.5 times as much done, right? So I brought that in earlier, and that was the gig I had. I was that guy when that company shut down unexpectedly. That guy, I didn't even have to write a resume. He offered me a job stepping into consulting on a lean team, and I was very much the junior guy. I was working around a bunch of guys in their 60s who started in the automobile industry and had done government projects and huge aeronautic projects, efficiency projects. And so for that 18 months, I was able to just be the sidekick for these very experienced consultants and watched how they worked and pick their brains and just kind of deepen my knowledge of lean at that point. So yeah, it was right from the very beginning. It's not about going faster; it's about doing your work smarter, so that um, And I think I've heard you use this quote by Bruce Hamilton on your podcast. It's not about the things we do well. That's called work. It's about getting the waste out of the way of our work so we can do our work better or something like that. Um, so yeah, right from the very beginning is the short answer.
I am I'm curious. Is is there a piece of the business that maybe took you the longest to really get a grasp on, to really understand or even get under control? Because there are so many moving pieces, and I know that a lot of them are important. Um, but what was the hardest to master, if you've done that yet?
I know how I would answer. How would you answer?
I was going to ask you the same question.
Okay.
Um, I I think I would say the hiring portion, just learning to move beyond the desire to help people by giving them a job, and it ties into company culture, team culture. Um, Realizing that it doesn't necessarily help people to hire them into a position that they're not good for, where they're not a good fit. It's painful for them, it's painful for the rest of the team, and learning how to build a really good, fully vested team that cares about the success of the company and understands that we're all in this together.
Yeah,
What were you thinking?
that's a great answer. I want to piggyback on that and then tell you what I would have said. The book Good to Great, and I can't think of the guy's name that wrote it. Um, there's a section in there where he says, what do you say? He said, when you have, he uses your business, an allegory for your business as a bus, right? And when you have the right people on the right seats on the bus, you're managing processes and not people. So sometimes you have the wrong people on the bus altogether. They don't belong in your company culture. And then sometimes you've got really good people, but you're having them do the wrong jobs or in the wrong seats. And for me, that was kind of the simple little aha moments, a moment of clarity, if you will, where I realized we had to get people, like she said, that was aligned with our mission. And that really was kind of the starting point for changing how we thought about hiring. What I would have said was the piece that took us a while to get our arms around was shopper metrics. And it took another
Um,
crisis to really drive that. So in 2021, when everybody went back to brick and mortar stores,
this is the
if you go back,
crisis I thought you were going to mention earlier when you talked about COVID.
oh, well, if you go back and look at the charts, and I remember clearly we were seeing these sales charts where e-commerce was hockey sticking during that time. And then right after COVID, it just dropped off the cliff when everybody, e-commerce went back to its more traditional growth curve and didn't really preserve a lot of the COVID era growth that everybody thought they would. And that translated to we had 13 months of Christmas at that point, right? The COVID era, I know there's a lot of young by account age sellers, people that got in during that time where it was really easy and now it seems a lot harder. And it was for us too, because we had shoppers that like almost if it scanned, it sold, they would sell on Amazon. So they were buying it in early 21. Our cash flow died. We had to cut our shopping budgets down by 25% for about 4 months. And that crisis really drove us to dig into the different numbers. I think we were bugging you at that time, like with Keepa questions and, hey, we're thinking about this and we're thinking about that. But that really gave birth to our shopper KPIs that we use now, which help keep our shoppers on track and they know how their stores are performing.
So something
It's
good came out of that crisis.
Yeah.
I see a trend though, that seems to happen quite a bit with you guys when there is a problem. Um, I think that a lot of us, and this is me included, I don't think we would necessarily think about company culture because we're just trying to hustle and figure it out and maybe put out fires and keep every other plate in the air. what is it that made you guys think about building a company culture so early? And how do you even figure out what your company culture should be?
We went to Nashville to like a 2 day seminar, and that's where we were first. And we had both read Rocket Fuel, and she's like, "Well, I'm the integrator, and you're the visionary," and but we didn't know what to do with it. And
You didn't
that's where
really
we.
like it at the time. You didn't like the implication.
Well, I just told you, like, there's more to being an integrator than just saying no to my ideas. Okay.
I was the resident dream killer.
Yeah, Megan Trainor was like her song "No," my name is No. That was her theme song for a while. Um, but no, we heard a EOS implementer whose his job is to implement EOS in people's companies, and not the guy we use because this guy is based in Miami. But he started talking about company culture, and what they said was it's just like you got to figure out your core values, and your core values are 3 to 7 ideas that really explain what it means to succeed in your company, what it means to fit in, who is going to thrive there. And that resonated with us.
I think it
There's,
resonated because we were having issues. Our team was having issues, right? We had some poor fits in there, and we immediately understood that's what's going on here.
yeah, exactly. Paul Akers in 2 Second Lean, he talks about fixing what bugs you in your workflow. And that's how you kind of find wastes and tweaks. Well, the personnel thing was bugging us as owners constantly. And when we heard it explained that way, it was just like an aha moment.
And then, Chris, you asked about figuring out what your company culture should be. I thought that was really fun. It was more of a discovery process. We didn't decide what it was going to be. We talked a lot between the two of us, and then also with some of our more senior trusted team members, and tried to discover, what makes our team click, what works well and what doesn't, what do we value in people, which people are causing problems and why are they causing problems. And we basically discovered our core values, which define our culture.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think the first pass that we came up with without, Rod Salp, our business coach, was pretty darn close to where we ended up in the end.
Yeah, he's a wordsmith. He helps us make things sound good and make them a lot more clear. But I think we were pretty close as far as the definitions.
Yeah. Well, and
Nice.
I'll just share them here briefly. What we came up with was total integrity, you know, doing the right thing always when no one is looking, and treating other people as better than yourself, treating other people with humility, um, abundance mentality, that there's enough to share with each other within the team and even with our competition, continuous improvement, always looking for better ways to do things, and ownership mindset. We want employees that really own the pieces of the business that we trust to them and treat it like it's their own business. And Kim really hammered on me. It took about a month to come up with all of those in a way that spells taco.
I
So
think right off the
Ah,
bat, we had three of the letters, and Perry is always bringing free tacos to the office. And we live in San Antonio, which is like the taco capital of the country.
yeah, suck it, Austin.
that's that tacos are the only thing I've ever eaten when I was in San Antonio.
See, there you go.
So and I think a lot of people, they maybe don't spend the time on this because they think maybe, oh, that's just for big corporations and things like that. And I do think that having a company culture is important. It's actually something I mean, I sort of have one here, but I kind of push it onto my kids too. They hate that. But
Well,
um
can I stop you there?
of course.
I've explained this to smaller sellers because it's really what it comes down to is you got to get clear on what behavior you're willing to tolerate or you want to encourage and the people you're going to be spending a lot of time with every day, right?
Hmm.
So even if you only have one employee, that other employee is the other half of your business, kind of, right? So if they're not a good fit for the kind of behavior, attitudes, and actions that you want to work with every day, and that's your job or your choice as the owner, there's going to be friction there. And that friction can make your life miserable day in and day out.
How do you get buy-in from people who aren't necessarily, running the business?
Well, we feel like it was a collaborative effort coming up with the core values. And we didn't just make them up, like she said. We discovered how we'd already been operating. Um, at some
And
point,
most of our employees did already fit that. It wasn't really a matter of getting buy-in from them.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And EOS tells you to hire, fire, reward, and reprimand based on your core values. So it becomes kind of a mantra. And when we let someone go, they were like, "What happened?" Well, he didn't fit our core values. He didn't really exemplify this, this, and this. And every quarter, I do a state of the company address where I just kind of review the previous quarter, and I remind everybody what our core values are. And at the end of that little miniature speech that I give, um, I recognize people on the team who have demonstrated in the past quarter individual core value, one of the individual core values, and I thank them for it. So it's just kind of repetition culture, building it in.
And also, it's really hard for someone to change their core values. So if their core values don't align closely with ours, they're assuming they get through the door in the first place, they're probably not going to last long. It's going to be an uncomfortable place for them, an uncomfortable position, and they're going to end up leaving either voluntarily or involuntarily. The goal is not to hire people who don't fit those core values in the first place, who don't value the same things that we do.
I think that all three of us here kind of have a bit of a soft spot for newer sellers. And one of the things I like to ask myself, and I want to ask you guys, is what are some things that you know now that would have saved you a ton of time or maybe even a lot of stress kind of early on in your business?
I'd say early on, one of the big ones would be hire a VA sooner.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's back then, there weren't as many places you could go to find a VA. I know of, I think, other services that find and train sourcing VAs and things like that. So we were kind of shooting in the dark. We had this preconceived notion that you had to have full-time work to hire remote help. It's not really true. Um, there's a lot of routine tasks that can be done that won't take up let you focus on more important things, you know?
I think that full-time thing came from people who were using VAs to source for them. And they were concerned that if they didn't give them full-time work, they might be tempted to share the leads. But if you're looking for VAs to free up your own time, which you should be doing on repetitive tasks, then there's no need at all to hire them full-time. There are plenty of people out there who would love to have 5 or 10 hours a week. And it takes such a load off sellers. And it's a good habit to get into early on, too. The sooner you start delegating, the easier it is, and the faster you can focus on the stuff that only you can do.
Yeah, and
If you could, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that because of some of our past experience, a lot of things I think would be pain points we didn't necessarily fall into. Like we chase coaches, find a good coach. That'll help with pain points. Or don't be afraid. A lot of sellers that I've talked to that are smaller and scaling, they're holding on a full-time job. They're trying to do all the prep. They're trying to do all the sourcing. Don't be afraid to outsource a little bit of your business so you can focus on the really high value tasks within your business. And we hear you don't want to be responsible for someone else a lot. Anyway, go ahead, hon.
Yeah, that's one objection. Another common objection is people feel like they can't afford to pay someone else. They can't afford to hire And I always want to remind them, if you can't afford to hire the job out, if you can't afford to hire someone for $15 an hour, then what you have is not a business, it's a $15 an hour job. Your business should be profitable enough that you can hire help and still have some money left over. And if you don't, you're doing it wrong. You need to fix that before you grow it. Don't grow an unprofitable business. Make sure it's profitable. A lot of times people don't count the value of their own time. They work for free in their business and they don't realize they're subsidizing something that is not sustainable.
Didn't realize I was going to come on here and get personally attacked with some information. I know that I know you guys want to help sellers of all stripes, but especially new sellers. What do you see sellers struggling with today that maybe you could help them with, or maybe that you wish you had been helped with sooner outside of hiring?
I'd say understanding cash flow, avoiding that first big mistake that we made that almost bankrupted us.
Yeah, that processes, like physical processes in their business, I think because they're small, it doesn't really matter how they do their prep or the order they do their prep. It can. We used to host a workshop focused primarily on how to do prep more efficiently, because that's kind of my sweet spot. But also, we implemented a lot of the stuff that we teach early on in our business. Right. Your time is very valuable in your business, so you want to maximize. Prep's probably the most painful for arbitrage sellers, most painful, least fun part of the process. So if you can get the right tools, the right setup, the right equipment, it becomes, I won't say fun, but far less painful. And then you can spend your time sourcing. You can spend your time repricing. You can spend your time doing things that really move the lever to make you money. Besides the fact that the faster you get your products to market in an arbitrage scenario, usually the faster your cash turns, right? And you can get there ahead of the competition a lot of times.
And build systems that scale. If your goal is to grow your business, when you're nailing down your processes, ask yourself, would this work if I was doing 10 times as much? If it doesn't, then build towards the future. Figure out how to build a system that will grow with your business. I also think it's really funny that when you asked that question, Chris, I immediately went to the finances and numbers, and Perry immediately went to the processes. You can see where our heads are.
Absolutely.
Well, I've just seen so many people, and I've had a few coaching clients over the last year where they're struggling with putting all the pieces from what they buy to the computer systems, software they're using to ship. And I know there's a lot of choices out there. We love Scampower for prep and ship, and then actually building their shipments. And I whiteboarded. I've worked in a few businesses. I flew to Pennsylvania a number of years ago, and I 6x'd that guy's prep in 5 days. I had some friends fly in from the Midwest, and we whiteboarded their process and just simple tweaks and realignments and how their information and their product flowed through their little prep area, doubled it just from a whiteboard exercise. So I've seen that real pain, right? And I've also been on the other side where I've been in a warehouse where I knew everything, like that 20,000 square foot warehouse I had as a job. And it was like an engine that needed to be tuned up. You could just feel that nothing was running right and everything was harder. And once we got the system right, it felt effortless. So I don't want people to live in pain, I guess,
I'd like to transition just a little bit to you guys selling the podcast, which it sounds a little weird, but I already know the value that you guys are going to bring to the space, but someone who may just be finding you for the first time, they deserve to know. So what is your guys' intention, or what is the gap that you guys plan to fill with the Ecom Toolbox podcast?
We think that there are plenty of podcasts out there to teach you how to source. There's plenty of podcasts out there that talk about how to start the business. But we don't see a ton of podcasts that talk about how to run the business. And I hope it's become obvious over the last hour or so we've been talking that over the last 11 years, we've been forced, often by crisis, to put a lot of thought in how this business is going to run in a way that makes it sustainable. And so we want to take that decade plus of experience and I think Kim used the term yesterday, open the hood of our business and give people a peek inside to help them understand what's possible and help them to tune up their business so it runs well for them and it's not running them.
And so they can understand, so they can know what they don't know. If you don't know what you don't know, it's really hard to learn new things. Sometimes you don't think of the right questions. One of
Yeah,
the
that
most
was
valuable coaching experiences we had early on was getting to do exactly that. Go look under the hood of a larger, more experienced seller. And we want to
yeah, that
share that
was
with them.
that black hole feeling was huge early on. Like, am I doing this right? Am I going in the right direction? Like, what the heck? You jump online and you ask some questions. You're hoping you're asking the right questions, and then you watch some videos. You like, there's a lot of that uncertainty when you're starting out.
And there's so much
And
conflicting advice too.
right, yeah, we just want to help cut through that uncertainty.
And become a little bit of signal through the noise that's out there right now. I get that.
Yeah,
Um, you know, when at the time we're recording this episode, news has come out that Amazon is, of course, growing. News has also come out that the traffic per seller is up. That the number of sellers doing 100,000, a million, and even $10 million a year are all up and at record numbers. We know that e-commerce has hit $10 trillion in the United States. And we also know that we're on a pretty steady growth curve of 4 to 5% every year in e-commerce. At the same time, we have the lowest number of new and retained Amazon sellers on the platform since, I believe, maybe 2018 or 2019. And so I know that there is a lot of people who feel behind. They feel overwhelmed, that maybe the opportunity has passed them by, or they're just not sure, should I focus on this, or do I need to go build the next AI wrapper of some sort and get that out to people? What would you say to those people who are just unsure, and how you guys plan to help them with this podcast?
That's that's a lot of numbers, and they all sound like good news to me for sellers. I think things have changed a lot since we started. In some ways, it's gotten harder. In some ways, it's gotten better. There's different opportunities than there were back when we first started, but still so much opportunity. I don't think it's going anywhere in the near future.
yeah, I would say pick a lane, right? And if Amazon is your lane, um, just give it a lot of focus because I agree with you. I've seen the same numbers. It looks like volume's growing and competition might be shrinking for the first time in a while, at least since COVID. Um, and so I think for people who are selling on the platform, who have navigated to a certain level and want to grow the first time in a while, I'm not going to say it's easy, but kind of breathe a sigh of relief that there's a clear path forward. And again, Amazon likes to keep us hopping. Um, so I think FBA is still a good opportunity. E-commerce is still a good opportunity, and it's certainly allowed us to put the pieces of business together in a way to be successful. And we really think we can help people do that.
And as we kind of close out, I think that podcasts are one of the best platforms. Now, I'm a little biased as someone who enjoys podcasting themselves, but seems to be no better way to connect with folks than them listening to you have discussions amongst yourself and with guests for hours and hours on end, and people kind of become your friend from a distance. And so I'm just curious, is there anything that you want to share about yourself, whether it's a personal anecdote or something like that, just lets the reseller community know a little bit about you?
I'm an introvert, but if anybody ever wants to talk about skydiving, hit me up. Skydiving and Amazon, that's two things I can talk about forever.
I can vouch. Yeah, I actually tried skydiving, but my second training jump landed badly and busted both of my knees. So I stick to being strapped to another human being for skydiving and do the tandems now, and let Kim do the solo dives. I don't know about us, about me. That's a great question. I'd say, if you looked at my Facebook Reels feed, it's full of a lot of Dallas Cowboys stuff and barbecue recipes. I love grilling and smoking and trying new recipes. Kim thought I lost my mind last year when I asked for a third grill. I have 3 different grills and a steak oven now. So they say when a man hits 40, he's got to choose to go into grilling or World War II history. I guess my choice is pretty clear.
I fully support that choice.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that one.
That's well said.
Well, guys, listen, I think this is going to be fantastic. I think you're going to bring some tactical advice. I think there's going to be some serious impact, not only on the audience, but I would imagine on some of the people that you bring on to interview. I'm looking forward to being a listener, and I really appreciate you letting me pick your guys' brains and help you introduce yourself to the Amazon community again as the Ecom Toolbox.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you taking the time. It's been a fun discussion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much for this, Chris.
Of course. That's it, everybody. Guys, best of luck with this. I will make sure that everyone I know tunes in.
All right, take care.